Hey, what's good, everybody? My name is Ahmed Dents. Welcome to We Are Listening. I am the director of venue experience here at San Diego Repertory Theatre. If you have been here with us before, welcome back. If this is your first time, welcome. Again, this is We Are Listening, where we celebrate the experience and lives of Black creatives, artists, workers, administrators, all the roles that we fill in the performing arts and theater world. Again, we are not the other. We are the standard. Thank you so much for joining me this evening. Tonight is going to be a very, very, very good show. We have some great guests for you tonight, and I cannot wait to start talking to them with you. Just want to give you a little reminder, as always, when we get started here, want to read you our land acknowledgement. Also would like to share my screen so you guys can check it out. If you want to read the full acknowledgement, please head on over to sdret.org/acknowledgement. And let me read this for you. San Diego Rep would like to acknowledge that the Lyceum Theater is built on the traditional lands of the Ipai Tipai Kumeyaay Nation, which is translated as the people who overlook the ocean from the cliffs. We also want to recognize their neighbors in the region, the Payo Kawichum, Tukawiha, and the Capino. San Diego Rep honors the over 20,000 current tribal members living in our area and elevates local elders, past, present, and future. We respectfully acknowledge these community members and their tremendous contributions and thank them for their continued stewardship. Again, if you would like to read our full land acknowledgement, head on over to sdrep.org/acknowledgement. And you can also check out this beautiful map that was done for us by Paul Cannon. Again, my name is Ahmed Dents, Director of Venue Experience here at San Diego Repertory Theatre. And as y'all know, I do not do this by myself. I would like to bring on my co-host. We might be having some technical difficulties. And right when I said I was going to bring on my co-host, she disappeared from my feed. So y'all know who I'm talking about, Director of Arts Engagement and In-House Casting at La Jolla Playhouse, Jacole Kitchen. Hopefully she'll be back with us in just a moment. She is trying to work on some stuff, some technical stuff. And I know she'll have some cool announcements for you and want to take part in this conversation. very quickly, in case she does not make it back on, let me help her out a little bit and tell you real quickly about what's going on over at La Jolla Playhouse. It is banging it. It's a banging new musical, banging it. Opening night was last night. Make sure you get over to the this out. I've heard nothing but spectacular things about it. So please head on over to lajollaplayhouse.org and check out all the information you need and get your tickets for Banging It. And don't forget the WOW Festival for 2022 at the Arts District and Liberty Station is on its way back beginning on April 21st. So a lot of good stuff going on over at the Playhouse. And over at the Old Globe, El Borracho, February 17th through March 20th. So, that's done. See, I'm slipping. See what happens when you do this stuff live? I'm slipping. That is already done. But check this out. Here's what you can do. Head on over to the Old Globe and check out all the spectacular events that they have coming up. Remember, We Are Listening is produced by San Diego Repertory Theatre in partnership with the Old Globe. And what's going on over here at the Rep? Well, we have 3 spectacular cast members from our current production happening right now. It is The Great Con, written by Michael Gene Sullivan, directed by Jess McLeod. It is a spectacular piece of work that I really want y'all to come out and see. It is humorous. It is educated. It is soulful. It is, I don't know how many words I can fit into this thing, but you just got to see it. It is a spectacular production. And let me tell you something. We got 3 of the cast members tonight, but this cast and crew, they knocked it out of the park. We're entering the final week. This Friday, Saturday, and Sunday are the final performances. Please head on over to sdrep.org and please check that out. Also, I want to share something else with you. Some little announcements for what we're doing right here. We Are Listening. I want to tell you about our upcoming guests that we have coming up. So number one, I want you guys to head on over to our Facebook page, our YouTube page, or Spotify and check out the interview we did with the playwright Michael Gene Sullivan. You will get some spectacular insight into this play if you have not, whether you've seen it or haven't seen it. If you're going to come see it this weekend, listen to this interview we did with Michael Gene Sullivan to kind of get your head straight when you come to see it out. Very informative. Michael, he's the guy, man. This dude, I love him. I love talking to him. So please make sure you head on over and check that out again. That is on our our Facebook page, our YouTube page, and it is on our Spotify page. Just search for We Are Listening. Coming up on April 25th, writer, actor, film director Rebecca Smenga Frank will be coming to join us. And when I say us, Jacole will not be able to make it that episode, but we have a special guest host. Candace Crystal will be joining me to talk to Rebecca. And then on May 9th, Jacole will be back in the house, and we will have what we have been looking forward to for a long time, the return of Sheldon Epps. He is now senior artistic advisor at the Ford's Theater in DC. But for those of you in this business, you know just what Sheldon brings to the table. He is a luminary. He is an OG in this thing. He's been doing it, and we're really looking forward to for him to come back, and we can talk to him about what's been going on in this last year and a half as he has taken on the role that he's taken on at the Ford Theater. Then also want to remind you, We Are Listening. I've been promising y'all for about 6 months I was going to get the podcast straight. The podcast is straight. It's updated. You can listen on Spotify and Anchor. I will get it expanded to Apple and some other platforms in the next couple of weeks. But just search We Are Listening on Spotify or Anchor. You can catch all of our episodes. I am up to date. Last episode was when I talked about the Emmy Award-winning actor Esther Rolle and her role in making Good Times exactly the spectacular family unit that it was supposed to be, but also the activism led to the downfall of that show. So please check out that episode. And great show, but a lot of turmoil behind it. And then the last announcement I want to make is coming up is our Black Voices Reading Series. Black Voices Reading Series starts next Monday, March 28th. 4 readings over 4 weeks of new plays by diverse Black writers. Head on over to our website at sdrep.org. Get more information. And you see right here where it says join us online or in person. That is because on April 18th for our final Black Voices production or screening, we will have a live watch party here at the Lyceum Theater. So again, head on over to sdrep.org/Black Black voices. And with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and be done with all the announcements. Right now, I would like to introduce you to three spectacular people. Usually when we get productions going, we get to meet all of the actors and the crew beforehand, but COVID put a wrinkle in that. So I have not been able to, well, Brittney, I know. I've been knowing Brittney for a minute, but I have not been able to really meet Michaela and Jerome except during the run of the show. So it's really good to sit here and be able to talk to them, because when we're all in the building together, we all run in 30 different directions. So it's going to be really good to sit here and talk to them. So what I would like y'all to do right now is please welcome to We Are Listening, Brittney, Caldwell. Please welcome Mikayla, Bartholomew, and Jerome Beck. What's up, y'all?
Hey, thank you for having us.
Hey, everybody.
Thank you for having us on.
Thank you for coming. I know Jacole is still trying to work out some technical difficulties, so hopefully she'll jump on the call with this. But again, I know y'all have been, I know the schedule I've been keeping and things that's been going on. So really, I really thank y'all for joining me. I know it's a Monday night, but thank y'all for taking the time to join us tonight. It's great. It's greatly appreciated. How y'all doing?
That's such a loaded question.
I know, right? That's what I do.
Coming out like bang, bang.
How y'all doing this Monday evening? How about that? How y'all doing tonight?
I feel good, rested, just kind of enjoying my day off.
That's right. That's right. Well, look,
and the few to come, the few more.
Right. We talked a little bit before, everybody got on, just I enjoyed my first day of our paid vacation, our accidental vacation during this contract. Enjoyed it with my family, which is, that's the silver lining. So I had a great day yesterday, nice San Diego day with my people and adventures. And I mean, I can't complain about that, but why I had that adventure, that's the loaded part.
Yeah. For sure.
I definitely think for me, like, this probably is my first real day off this entire contract, which is hilarious because like we should have been working yesterday. But I realized today and yesterday how exhausted I have been and how I've been kind of running on very many cylinders as someone who is like both in this cast, in this show, blessed to tell this story with Jerome and Brittney and our incredible team. While also trying to be like an advocate for everybody as like the equity deputy and making sure we're well taken care of. And so yesterday I was like, oh, wait a minute. Hold on now. This is what rest looks like? Are we sure? Don't I have something else to be doing? But yeah, just trying to enjoy the sunshine, really. That's what I'm taking today.
Okay. That's what's up. That's what I'm talking about. Let's do this. I want each of you to give us a brief introduction of yourself and kind of what led you to get into this theater performing arts world. I'm gonna go clockwise as I'm looking at the screen. So that order will be Brittney, Michaela, and then Jerome. So Brittney, why don't you tell everybody watching a little bit about how you got started in this performing arts thing and how we got to where we are now?
I was just one of those kids. I was a singing and a dancing and a kid. I was pretty certain early on that I wanted to act. I also was a talented hairstylist. So I had a 10-year plan at 12. I'm going to go to cosmetology school so I never have to work a real job. I'm gonna go and get a degree so that I can make my kids go to school. Not that I really thought that a degree was a big deal, but I figured, college needs to be in my family. Although now I have differing opinions about that. But that's just kind of what I did. I set off, and by 14, I had already been in a couple of shows. At this point, my life in theater has transitioned quite a bit. I love the stage. I've also developed a real passion for writing. I've found that I have a real knack for writing things. I find myself to be very funny, and I think that right? Like I think I'm funny, but I think that I think education through theater is so powerful. I think that using the arts as a teaching tool can be so powerful and touch people who don't know that they want to learn something. And that's been kind of my way in. I wrote a piece called "From Color to Black," that is used as education for high school students in Florida about Black history. The power of that tool is they weren't going to teach Black history. They're not trying to teach Black history. We know that. And it's just kind of a little sneaky way to get in things that you want to share with the world. And it's something that I enjoy. And I also believe that actors should be paid for what they do. So I believe that this is my way of creating jobs for other actors and other actors specifically that look like me. Really, that's my focus. I really don't have an interest in other people. I say that loving everybody, but really loving my people. So I think about the stories that matter to us, what I want us to learn, and what's going to employ more of us.
That's right. That's right. That's what I'm talking about. How about you, Michaela?
Well, I kind of got into acting, into the theater on accident. I was clumsy, I was loud, and I was in honors in high school. And so, I always joke and I say the very first show I ever did was Annie the Musical. They had us share the role of Grace. A dear friend of mine, Jody, and I shared the role, but I didn't really care. It was just something to do after school. And when I got to high school, I played volleyball, field hockey. Eventually, I ran track. And every season, I would get hurt somehow. I'd either have to have surgery because of a dog bite, or I had to have oral surgery, so I had to sit out of the volleyball season. And I needed something to do after school. And I ended up doing theater. And one of my teachers was like, "Hey, you could probably go to school for this." And my mom, unfortunately, came down with a heart condition my senior year of high school. And I had applied to all of the schools pre-med, including San Diego State University. I grew up in Virginia, but I was born here. And I wanted to come live in San Diego so bad. But when my mom started having heart attacks, I realized I needed to stay closer to home. And I had applied to one school and auditioned for one school for theater. And I got in, and so I decided to study theater, pre-nursing, gender, sexuality, and women's studies. Started working professionally pretty early on while I was in school still, and the rest is kind of history. And I guess this industry has become my way of advocating for not only my people, but folks who identify within my community, but do not necessarily have the same access to privilege and platform as I may have been blessed with. So I always say that my goal is to make room for folks who do look like me and who do identify as I do, and for those who don't. The idea is to crack open the door so not just like a couple of people who look like me can get in, but so I could bring the whole neighborhood. You know what I mean? So I've been doing this for a minute. I really, really like it. It's my way of protest. It's my way of making room, my way of making space for new stories to be told and for us to be able to be seen as human beings. I think theater and acting and film and television is our way of revolution. And I think it could change policy in the ways in which we engage with the world and how people engage with us.
That's what's up. That's what's up. Yeah, I'm gonna come back to both of y'all because everybody's hitting something. I got to come back on and ding on Jerome. And Jerome, I'm gonna apologize. I'm gonna apologize to you in advance because, like I was talking about before, how I didn't really get the mix up with y'all until the first time I literally saw you was on stage as Jaden. So every time I see you, I have to go out of my way to not say Jaden and say Jerome because I got the two J's. That's how I first met you. So if it slips out, I'll apologize. But
I forgive you. Thank you in advance.
Jaden. I see Jaden every time.
Thank you. Can you hear me? I put this headphone in. Okay, cool.
No, you're good. Give us a little intro for you.
Yeah, so I am a storyteller who got bit by the theater bug pretty early on. I spent a lot of time at my house, jumping around, imagining myself in my own stories and stuff. And there were different instances where people had mentioned to my mom that I should maybe go to art school because I was always wanting to be in a movie, or I was writing a story and playing it out in the house. And eventually, by the time I got to middle school, my librarian recommended I audition for Booker T. Washington High School for the Performing and Visual Arts in downtown Dallas. Well, it was in Oak Cliff when I auditioned, and then we moved back downtown. But I went there for theater. I started studying, and I just kind of like fell in love with acting and I mean, I always knew that I had appreciated like acting, but I didn't realize that that was what I really wanted to do until I started studying theater. And I met some pretty great teachers there who inspired me. And then I kind of fell into, I'm sorry, what was that? Oh, sorry. I kind of fell into studying acting heavily, and I went to UNT in Denton, Texas, and I got my BA in acting. And then I was like, I need more training before I go out and call myself a professional. So I want to get into a professional training program. And then I went to DePaul for acting, and I got my MFA there. And I basically, I mean, like Brittney and Michaela have already said, you know, acting has become my channel of activism. I just only recently, well, I used to dabble in writing in high school as well, but I see my way as like voicing other Black voices by being an actor. And I make it an even spiritual essence by saying that I'm a storyteller and not just an actor, because I think that being in mostly institutions studying theater, that it is this thing of like, you're an actor, you're just an actor, you're an actor, you're just an actor. And I finally had to get to a place where I was like, I wanted to reclaim what that means for me. So yeah, I've been doing it for a minute. And yeah.
Cool. Thank y'all. Yeah, like I just, like I said, anybody can read bios, but I always like for our audience and for people who listen to hear, you know, you talk about yourselves. No one can tell your story like you can. You know what I'm saying? So that's why I always like everybody to come on, just give us a little rundown of themselves. I want to touch back on something you talked about, Brittney, which was education. You know, our second episode, we had, you know, Monique Gaffney on here, who's all about education. And we, you know, she came out here a couple of times, and every time she comes out here, she gives us just this master class of the history of theater, especially on the Black side. And yeah, this was such and such, and I was a kid, and James Baldwin was in my living room, and I didn't, you know, just, we don't hear a lot of that. We don't hear a lot of that history from ourselves or about ourselves in theater. And so that's what leads us, like, at the same as y'all are talking about, like, y'all are on stage and I work in the administrative space, but my fight is when I came into theater and I started doing what I was doing with the box office and ticket administrative. I'd go to a national conference full of like 1,500 people and run into like maybe 6 or 7 other Black people who were in our space as administrators in theater, you know, people who weren't, we're not even talking about the stage, people who were working in the offices. And my thing has always been, you know, how do you expect there to be true representation on stage if from the founder to the board to the senior leadership to administration, how do you expect there to be equity on stage if it doesn't come and trickle from the top? It just, the world doesn't work like that. There's no way it works like that. So just like y'all, my fight has always been just access, number one, or just letting other people who look like me know, oh no, you got a tech head, there's room for you in theater. You're an electrician, oh, there's room for you in theater. Oh, you're good with numbers, you can do finance, and like, you can come into this space. You know what I mean? Talk to me a little bit, Brittney, about what are the specific things about education that you see are lacking as far as when it comes to the theater world?
So what my focus isn't necessarily to focus on what's lacking. It's to add in what I see holes in, right? So something to me that's really important is financial literacy in our community. So I actually learned a whole nother profession to write a play about it. I became a life insurance agent because I understood that a huge part of the wealth gap has to do with, inheritance, right? All right, this family has, homes. They have life insurance, an old 401k to leave to their family. Those children, they have a different outlook on how they can start in their life. Because my purpose is so that I believe that every child deserves to pursue their passion, right? Now, if you know certainly that you have a college fund ready for you, that your parents' home is going to come to you, they'll never outspend the money that they've saved for their retirement, so you have that to fall back on. How could your mind work to create? What could you create if you knew that you were safe financially, if you weren't in survival mode, which I think a lot of people in our community tend to be in? 18, I'm going to have to do something. I'm going to have to get a job. I'm going to have to, if I don't get a scholarship for school, then I'm going to be taking out loans, automatically in debt. I think that having education about finances, bridging that wealth gap, maybe I'm not a person that's going to be able to get my entire generation rich, but what I can do is help them to plan for their children and their children's children, so they know what to do if they do come across a little bit of money, right? The things that I'm inspired by, well, when Derek came to school, a couple of things, not only performances. So I'm a person. I got afraid of it, but I also was exposed to drugs I had never heard of, right? Curiosity, but I didn't want to be a crackhead. I wanted to keep my teeth, so I was safe. But like my first real life paid acting job, I worked for Parenthood. What we did was we created shows, one for a middle school and one for high school, to educate about sexual health, bullying, domestic violence, communication, and it was brilliant, right? It made it digestible, and they heard, understood, and I'm like, this can be done with so many things. And so for me, finance is important to our community for now. So that's my next project. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Because kids, they go back home and tell their parents what they learned at school, right? Mom, do you have a life insurance policy? If your 8-year-old came home and asked you that and you didn't have one, then wouldn't that kind of jar you a little bit and make you think about maybe why you don't?
Right.
So it's things like that. I have things that I want to teach, but I don't want to teach them in a standard way.
Right. I get it. Hey, real quick, somebody done joined the room. What's up, Jacole? I'm glad we got all the bugs out of the machines and all that. How you doing?
I'm going to choose not to answer that question right now, but I am so happy to be able to participate in this here conversation, to sit and listen and get to take in what is being taken in. I am happy to be here. Who knew that if you're on a desktop within a network, you had to be on Firefox?
Oh, I could have told you that. I am familiar with StreamYard. I didn't know that was your situation.
I didn't know either, babe. I didn't know either, but I am here. We are here. We are talking financial literacy. We are talking about being Black in theater. That is what I am here for. Thank y'all for being here and allowing me to join the conversation.
Thank you for letting me know that, because I'm on Chrome right now. I didn't know that was a thing. So that's something I'll keep in mind on the technical end going forward. But Jacole, we're glad to have you. I hope I did all right with the announcements for what's happening at the Playhouse and all that good stuff.
I'm sure you did great.
Jacole, you got some questions? I'm gonna go ahead and let you do what you do.
Wonderful. See, I'm gonna let you do what you do, because I miss the intros, which is where I usually formulate the majority of my questions.
Right. Okay.
So now what just happened was, you just put me on the spot that I don't prepare for. We are listening. But I do all of my preparations in the first 10 minutes. But I'll start here. No, I'm gonna wing it. I'm good because I'm a professional. I am a professional, even when I come in 30 minutes late. So here's what I'm gonna do for a second, because Brittney, you and I go way back. I am so happy to be sharing this space with you. I know that Michaela and Jerome, good God, I am in a terrible place right now. Jerome, I would love to just know a little bit more about, because you all are coming in from out of town. You all are, you have roots here in San Diego, but I would just love to hear a little bit about what you have just experienced. What's the difference between the climate that you come from and what you've kind of experienced here in San Diego?
Yeah. Let's get into it. Absolutely. Thank you so much for that question. I didn't know if Jerome was going to go first, and I felt like we were making virtual eye contact.
We were. I was figuring out who was going to go. But if you would want to start, you are welcome to.
Sure, absolutely. I come from. I've been based in New York City for the last 5 years, and then before that, I was in school at Virginia Commonwealth University. So I was born in San Diego, but I have 2 military parents, and I was the first grandchild on both sides of the family. So when I was a baby, my mom and dad were like, let's go, let's find our way so that we can be in the middle of like Pensacola, Florida, Louisiana, where some of my family is, Detroit, and Chicago, where the rest of my family is. And so that put me in Virginia. And once I was in college and I started working professionally as an actor, I wanted to be a nurse for a naval hospital in the obstetrician gynecology unit. And when I realized that storytelling was something that I did well and that I could potentially pursue it as a real job, I told my parents, I was like, so we finished the pre-nursing part of my degree. I think I'm just going to focus on theater because I started finding ways to use it as a source of advocacy and speaking out about things that I really believed in and telling stories that did not always reflect my experience or the fact that I could be a part of these different worlds or different ideas that we like to dream and imagine in theater. And I ended up in New York. And I did a lot of work, and still do a lot of work off Broadway and on Broadway with particularly as an actor, but also within the Broadway Advocacy Coalition, and found a means to use storytelling as a way to pair arts and advocacy. So nearly everything I do, and I would say even with like the film King Richard, everything I do has to do with redefining the ways in which Black femme presenting people are defined in the mainstream media to make room for different stories to be told and for different bodies to take up space, and how those can interact with how we see people, how we engage with people, how we make policy, how we change the world. And so coming to San Diego to do this story felt like I was coming home to kind of play with my roots while also telling a story about 2 young Black children in 2022 finding their way in a world that's not built for them and does not serve them. And how do we make a story that's not written for white audiences accessible to those audiences, but know that it's still centered around Blackness and redefining the ways in which we take in history. And I will be completely transparent and say it's been really hard because it feels like at San Diego Rep, it's still a predominantly white-led institution. And I felt the foundations of white supremacy sneaking into our very process, even though most of our team is from out of town. And I've had to be like an advocate for myself, an advocate for my castmates, to be like, okay, if we're going to talk about representation by having Black bodies on stage and Asian bodies on stage, to redefine what stories we're telling and what people think about history and how we turn stereotypes on a head when we look at Black folks and when we look at Asian folks, then we have to be doing that in the room and in the institution, with how we take care of people, with how we make sure everyone has access to what they need so that they can do their job and come in without fear of intimidation or retaliation, with an understanding that they're being paid enough so that they're actually making a profit, considering the pay disparities that exist for those who are in differently gendered bodies, in different racial identities in marginalized communities. Mm-hmm. And so it's been a both and. On the front end, getting on stage, telling this story that is very emotionally and physically exhausting. and being backstage like, okay, we're not necessarily being treated the way we Black folks, considering that we are the standard, as we say here at We Are Listening, we're not being treated as if we are the standard and as if we should be treated like we are the standard. So what do we do about that? And how can we speak up and speak out safely? And so that's been my experience coming to San Diego. It's just definitely been revelatory. And I'm just trying to move my way through it. And I'm so grateful to have the community and cast members that I do and the team that we do, and a theater that's willing to listen, where we're like, this ain't cute. So what can we do about it?
Yeah. Thank you so much for that. And Jerome, I want to get to you and I want to hear your experience as well. But just on what you were just saying, Mikayla, like so many things swirled for me. And one of the things that I love the most about the Great Con and about the characters that the three of you, but I will say that the two of you especially portrayed, is it's a portrayal of Black people we do not get to see on stage, young Black people especially. I love that Jerome, your character both of these characters are just kids who just want to be kids. And so often we as Black people are not able to just be that thing that we just want to be. And the fact that I don't want to give anything away for folks that are still coming to see it, but Mikayla, the fact that your character, she just wanted to be seen as a kid and have platonic ass friendships the way that kids do, and just the understanding of just being able to just sit and be. And I just loved that. And especially Jerome, your character as well. Young Black boys we don't get to be portrayed as just nerds and geeks, and how many of us are there. And when you came out in that, what is it, Pac-Man onesie, I was just like, yes, because like, and again, the having conversations with Michael about what was really important to him about this relationship especially, and that other playwrights or other directors want to, but can we just see if there's a romantic connection? Can we play with it? And I'm like, there is nothing like romantical about this kid that comes out in a Pac-Man onesie. No, these are just friends.
They're friends. They're just kids.
They're just kids. Why are we trying to make them be more than that? So that was something that just spoke so much to me in watching this. And thank you, Mikayla, for starting that conversation. I know it hasn't been easy, and that is an understatement of the century. But Jerome, I'd love to hear your take on this as
well. So I guess kind of how I got to San Diego. I lived in, I'm from Texas. I grew up in Texas. I went to high school in Texas. My undergrad was there. And I just realized that I was feeling stifled there. I didn't think that I was going to be able to express myself fully as an artist. And so I immediately started looking at ways to get myself out of Texas. And the easiest way I found was to put myself further into debt and go to grad school. So while DePaul was really amazing, I really wish I hadn't had to take out as many loans as I did. But I was in Chicago for 6 years, which was really enriching, especially in terms of the artistic sense. There are a lot of people, there are a lot of movements that happened in Chicago in terms of like dealing with sexual harassment and how to deal with that, and other ways of being treated well within theaters. There was Not in Our House, which was made by, oh goodness, I'm forgetting her name, Laura Fisher. I hope I'm saying her name right. Laura Fisher, who made Not in Our House, which is basically just like a landscape for people to follow within theaters, and how to, who to go to when you're experiencing certain turmoil in theaters. Ideally, it would have been useful when dealing with some situations here at San Diego Rep. But basically, Not in Our House was something that was used to like hold everyone in the theater accountable for how we treat each other. So that's the kind of the background that I came from. I went to DePaul. There were a lot of like people, closed caption performances were a thing that happened in our shows. Like there were people who were there who were telling the story through sign language. So that was also something that was, those are kind of like the background, the things that were instilled in me before I left. And then the pandemic happened. And I was like, I am a storyteller. I'm an actor. That's how I make my revenue. That's how I make my money. I was like, theater isn't happening. What should I do? And I moved to Los Angeles. And then this show found me and I read it. And I immediately started bawling like a baby because I immediately identified with Jaden. I had never been to San Diego before. I didn't know what to expect here. All I knew was that I needed to be on the stage playing Jaden. And just because I identify so much with him, especially in my youth, in terms of being a heavy video gamer. And also, I think that something that kind of a tangent, but still on the same tangent. My mother spent, oh my God, my cat's trying to get on my lap. My mother spent a lot of time trying to inform me to open my eyes to the things that were going on around me. And I went to this arts high school where we were kind of brainwashed into thinking that we all had the same opportunities and colorblind casting and it works and all of these things. So there was a lot of brainwashing and white supremacy and things like that I had to undo for myself, that my mother was trying to instill in me, that those things didn't really start unraveling for me until after I left college. But once I got to that place, like who Jaden is as a 16-year-old is where I am now. And that navigation that I'm trying to find, being a non-binary actor, but being mask presenting, and that fear of, driving a car. I don't have a license because not only have I had bad experiences in cars, but also the experiences that I've seen from Black men who look like me and what has happened to them and just all of those things. But anyways, being here in San Diego, doing the show, I knew that the audiences were going to look a particular way, majority, because that's unfortunately right now, that has been the makeup of theater, is majority of the audiences are white. And I've had to make a conscious effort that if I'm going to do a play, that if it is a play that has Black bodies on the stage, you're going to have to hear uncomfortable things about what I'm saying. And you're going to hear and you're going to get experiences that you're not normally accustomed to. And all of those things, all of those experiences kind of poured into why I'm here in San Diego doing the show.
Thank you so much for that. And one of the things that you just touched on, see, Ahmed, you gave me the floor. You gave me the floor to talk. Now I'm gonna talk for a minute.
I know I did.
But one of the things that you just touched on, Jerome, is the willingness of what we are willing to do because we want to do the thing that we do. Mm-hmm. And I think that there are always so many sacrifices that we have to make, and concessions that we always have to make in order to do it. And Brittney and I have had this conversation a lot. I've had a lot of conversations with other actors about those things. And we go, but I want the job. And I'm going, yeah, but does that feel right to you? But I want the job. Mm-hmm. And I guess my question is, there's always going to be things that we have to sacrifice in our life, no matter what, for something. There's always going to be maybe some level of sacrifice. I think my question for the three of you is, has that willingness to sacrifice, or what you are willing to sacrifice, changed over time for you?
Yes.
Yeah.
Brittney, yeah. I was like, Brittney, I saw emphatic, everything. Yeah. Talk to me.
This experience specifically has changed what I think that I'm willing to endure, right? For a long time, it's like, well, I really, really want the job. But like, if you really, really want the job and you get there and it's a shitty contract, then you feel differently about the work. Luckily, this team, oh my gosh, I've never been with a cast who has had to stick up for each other so much. Luckily, like, It's a whole bunch of militant people in a space where they're not used to having militant actors who are like, no, this is wrong. We're not going to do it. What's up? What can you do that's different? Because this ain't right. The thing is like, just to be very, very clear, when I came here, my situation is a little different than theirs. There was an attempt to cast me as a local actor. I'm not local. I'm just from San Diego. But I was very clear that, there was something that was going to happen for me when I got here. Maybe you guys don't house me, but I'm going to get a car. Y'all don't know that you guys are going to give me a car. I'm not going to be in San Diego, not a public transportation city, without a car working this show. You're acting crazy. And here's the thing. By myself, I might not have won that fight, but Michaela, being very diligent and well-read and just finding out whatever we did to know about the rules. And everybody really saying, okay, well, if this is the line that we're standing on, we're going to stand together. But what I've found is this beautiful, beautiful work that we are working on. I get to play Jaden's mom, a regular mom, not somebody's baby mama, a married mother. I don't have any kids, but I get to mother of a great kid. Does that make sense? I get to be in a cast full of actors. Like every time I walk into the room, I'm like, goodness gracious, I must be damn good because y'all good. Like every day I feel like that. However, I'm reluctant to walk into the building because of all of the things we've endured just to make this show happen. I resist hanging out with my cast after work because they look like the trauma that I've been going through for the last 6 weeks. And so not only will I be more specific about the work that I choose, but I'm going to do a lot more research about the theater that I choose to work in. I'm going to find out who's worked there before. The theater community is way too small for me not to be able to ask these questions. And you see a show you want to do, I haven't thought to ask those questions. What was your experience like? And I won't make that mistake anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Michaela, I see you nodding in agreement as well.
Yeah, I think something that always, comes out in my mind when we're having these conversations is the opportunity to reimagine what these institutions can look like, right? Because we're all storytellers here. We want to continue working in this industry, but what do we want the industry to look like in order for us to be able to sustain telling these stories and doing it in a way where we can actually make a living and not feel uncomfortable or dirty when we walk away or when we just take our suffering in silence. And so in addition to being, very serious about speaking up and actually, no, we're going to name a limit here, or actually, this is what the LORT theater rulebook says, or actually, this is the ways in which equity supports us here. Being able to identify those and then also love each other and be in community with each other is revolutionary because it shows these institutions that there's another way for us to operate. Right? As hard of a time that I've had on this contract, I see that there's possibility in this institution reframing and changing the systems that they have in place. Otherwise, I would have left, right? And so this idea of reimagining always comes up for me. I help facilitate these, workshops called Reimagining Equitable Productions. And I actually have worked in building that process with our director, Jess McLeod. We know each other not because I'm an actor and she's a director, but because we work in the advocacy and activism space together at the Broadway Advocacy Coalition. And so when this opportunity came out, I was like, okay, if I'm going to be telling a story or auditioning to tell a story about the humanity of Black folks, then I have to make sure the humanity of all of the disenfranchised bodies in this space is also honored when we're doing the job. I can't just tell the story with the lights on me and not live it practically off stage. And something that has really stuck with me is this this thing that Mr. Will told us when we were wrapping our film a couple years ago, I guess at this point, was there is nothing that will fuel you more than the power of telling a story that you actually believe in. And I'll say it again because I messed it up. Nothing will fuel you more than the power of telling a story you actually believe in. And I believe in this story I really do. I would do this show again right in New York City. Playwrights Horizons was good. Okay. Roundabout, do you need a new show? Y'all want to do Black work? Let's do it. Or shoot, August Wilson Theater, like, go ahead, put another Black show in there. Let's do it. I would tell this story again in a heartbeat. But I do want to make sure that every institution I walk into is changed for the better when I walk out, and make sure that the people that I'm working with are served and poured into so that I can also be poured into in that process. And even though this has been a depleting process for me, I do think that San Diego Rep has an opportunity to be better going forward because of it. And if they don't, you know, that's a missed opportunity.
Well, what you said it right. They have the opportunity to use this to grow moving forward. They do have that opportunity. It's a matter of the work that any institution is willing to do to learn and grow. And Ahmed, I'm gonna throw this back to you in just 1 second. Yep. But one of the things we are, as I'm sure Ahmed let you all know, Bangin' It is currently open last night and is in production at the Playhouse. Yes, Ari Afsar. So I was talking to one of the cast members as we're walking out last night, and he was saying he was actually a cast member that was part of the workshops, you know, really creating this early on, and he was saying just what a unique and wonderful experience it was, as you all were saying, to have this creative team, to be in a room full of completely people of color, the creative team being all people of color. And he said, it blew my mind. I wanted to give him a megaphone. He said, being in that space allowed me to just be an actor and be able to concentrate on the work versus having to think about all the other things that I have to think about sitting in a room when I am the only person of color, or when all of these things are happening. Being in this space that was just safe because the cast and the creative team was all people of color, and you could have real discussion. He did not have to carry that into the room with him, and he just got to be an actor. And what an amazing experience that was.
And I think it goes back to what Ahmed was saying. I think maybe before you came into the space, Jacole, was what happens when you change the makeup of the people who run the institution that you want to build more access to when it comes to the kinds of stories you tell and the kind of audiences you serve. And one of the reasons we had to have those things on our back and our shoulder is because while it is definitely more diverse than many theaters staff here at the Rep, there's an opportunity to really recreate the ways in which those systems and the people who do have positional power in administrative positions will have a better idea of how those who are directly impacted by systems of white supremacy actually have to enter into these spaces. Because it's great not to have to code switch and rehearsal. It's absolutely fantastic. But when you don't know how to engage with the folks who actually have the power over your paycheck, it kind of changes the power dynamics. We can have those real conversations with our team and Jess and our sound designer and our set designer and all that kind of stuff. But when our production manager comes into the room, do we want to codify ourselves to make sure it's appeasing enough for them to help us out? The same for our artistic director. Like, when do we have to shift the ways in which we engage because of the people who have the most positional power and the greatest proximity to power in the institution?
Right. I just to add to that, or piggyback, I mean, part of my thing is, and you asked a little bit earlier, like, have we sacrificed things, or are there things that we negotiate when coming into a project? And, you know, at first, especially for me, I was like, oh, the next time I do a show, I want it to be Black, or I want it to be about my people. I wanted to, you know what I mean, be very expressive in that way. And it didn't, and something that didn't cross my mind was like, I hope that the theater operates like this, and that. Like, I didn't think about how the theater itself operated. I went, oh, it's an equity theater. That's cool. It's more than the last project I worked on, so that's nice. And I get to stay here for a little bit. But what is something that is becoming important to me now is, and kind of what Michaela was saying, is how do these institutions take the opportunity to change? Are they, You know, what is the point in projects bringing in actors over and over, and there always being a situation that arises, and the actors have to be these people who are like, hey, have you looked at how your theater operates, because it's kind of janky, like, or have you thought about looking at it this way, like, what, you know, I think for me, a huge part of it is the person that represents the theater, the artistic director. What does that look like? Who is that person, and who is the face of this theater? Even if that person is a founder, right? And it is so important to respect those type of those things about someone, and to also be like, well, when is the opportunity? When is it now time to change the outlook or change the makeup of who represents this theater administratively? And that's something that's big to me. I think that I have a fear of walking into, I think, most theaters, and if the artistic director is white, what are you doing? What are you doing to show that you're doing the work? And I think that that's really big, especially for me moving forward into everything. I mean, all of these large theaters, and who holds the power, who makes the artistic decisions, and how long have they been making the artistic decisions? I think that I think that the people in power have to be willing to give up power, have to be willing to step down, have to be willing to, and the big question becomes, who wants to do that? Because, you know, I mean, there are people inside of minorities who hold power who are afraid to give up power because it's so hard. You know what I mean? When minorities or people of color get to certain positions and they want to hold on to them. So I think that holding on to positions is something that everyone deals with. But I think that in terms of dealing with white supremacy and how it is kind of sewn into how a theater works, really, is kind of terrifying, and also like, okay, so what are we gonna do next? And why should the storyteller or the actor feel like they have to put on 5 or 6 different hats to make sure that they get treated equitably? That shouldn't be the case. So I mean, and I think it is happening. There is shifts that are happening all around the country. But I'm just here to say it has to keep moving, keep shifting, even more drastically than what it is. Yeah.
I number one, I really want to thank y'all for being here in this space.
Yes.
Because
Yes.
that is what Jacole, I'm gonna try not to go on one, but you got me primed. I don't know if they thought originally that this was the space is going to be, but this is what we made it. We made it a celebration of us. We made it a platform where we can speak honestly, because that's what we've been told we wanted to hear. You wanted to hear us speak honestly. Your question goes to me too, Jacole. I have changed how much I am willing to sacrifice. I have changed a lot in the last month. There's a lot of things that I don't do anymore, and there's a lot of roles that I don't fill anymore. And that's happening nationwide. You know, we just saw a report, I think it was an American Theater magazine. I was trying to find it, but I couldn't, but I read it the other day, that, you know, the report card is in for this first year and a half, as far as all the EDI stuff.
Hollywood Reporter. Yeah.
Yes, Hollywood Reporter. Okay. And the report card is not good. And I didn't expect it to be. I didn't expect it to be, because, to be honest with you, and I've said this here at work, I've said this here in meetings, I've said this out in the street, because this was going to be a lot harder than people thought it was. This was going to be, there was a lot more than you thought. Like, I'm sitting in all these different reading and watching and all these various different EDI things. It's like, yeah, but you're not going deep enough. And it's like, I mean, literally, Jerome, like there's a part in the play where you are talking about the Middle Ages, and my mind goes like, we don't go that far in the EDI training. But you have to go that far in the EDI training, or you're not going to you keep trying to stop at this place and that place and this place. And great, we know all the terms. It's great. We know all the terms. We know all the agreements. We know that's great. But when it comes to putting the rubber to the road, when it comes to really understanding what this is, when you say you want to do this, when you say this is what you're doing, it just turned out the way I thought it was, because it's a lot more than people thought it was going to be. They thought it was going to be really easy to write some things, do some things, have some meetings, have some Zoom meetings, and try to get, and not understanding like, nah, this is work. This is life work. This is soul work.
You can't be afraid to be called racist.
No, you can't.
Okay.
If you hold a position of power and you don't know everything, which you won't, like, you can't be afraid to be called racist or be told that you hold an implicit bias. You have to be ready and open and willing to listen and see what you can do. But you can't be afraid of that. You
have to be willing to be in the room, right? You know, like my dream is that Sam Woodhouse will sit and listen to this conversation, right? Because that gives an opportunity. The same for any theaters. If I'm walking into work with Aladdin on Broadway, I expect the people who sit up on the eighth floor that have all the powers, that get to decide what policies go in place for the cast and whether or not they decide to cancel a show because not enough tickets are sold, and so people's pay get cut on their Broadway weeks, and now they don't have enough health to their health insurance. Like, those people should be in the room when the directly impacted are saying, like, this is what it is, and this is what it should be, this is what it ought to be, and this is what we're going towards. And what does that look like for you, the person with the most, like, the closest proximity to power? What are the needs of the directly impacted, and how can you act on them? We live in an industry, and we also live in a world that loves to talk about what it is, but doesn't know how to be about what it needs to be. And so how do we do it practically? And how do we shake off the fear and the intimidation of, like, okay, but if I speak out, am I going to get another contract, my nigga? Oops, excuse me. I don't know if I can.
You're good, girl. You good.
Oh, you're good.
Y'all said it's not.
We are listening.
We're listening.
Work, if I decide to make this post or be like, I don't trust white audiences with Black theater, which is something I truly am going through right now. I didn't trust white audiences with Jerome and Ant at all. And I've said that in a talk back. I've said that in a community conversation. And I believe it. And I feel like if I have too much fear to say it out loud, then somebody else who's going to have opportunity to be in the room is also that fear is going to be colored all over that space. And then we can't talk about what we need to do practically. Like, what's the next step? Great. We have an anti-racism policy. What do we do when it fails?
You know what, Michaela? There's something that you touched on right there that I forget what episode it was, but we had our first Black theater critic on here, Kalundra Smith. Right, does a lot of work in New York, ATL, and the person who I'm about to speak of will hear this from me because I see them. And they will hear this from me. But there was a review written to where the term "there's gangster rap" playing. Stop. You don't know. Okay, stop. Let's not. In other words, just what you were saying,
that's actually played in the show. Let's think about
like what you're saying, not trusting. Like, okay, well, here's someone who's a critic. I don't trust you to come review this show because you don't know what you're talking about, and I don't mean that as hyperbole. You don't know what you're talking about, and you not knowing what you're talking about, it's dangerous. You don't know what you're talking about. You're coming off an idea that's been curated for you. because you hear music and for you, oh, that's, you don't even know what gangster rap is. You don't know what rap is. You don't know what hip hop is. You don't know what bars are. You don't even know what you're listening. You don't know what's going on. So let's leave your descriptions out if you don't know what you're talking about, because like you said, now you're curating the image for people who have not come to the show, who have not seen it. Even if your review was great, you're still wrong and you don't know what you're talking about.
Or like putting in the adultification bias of Black kids and not even realizing it's adultification bias by saying, Jerome, if it's okay if I say this,
Yeah,
Jerome.
go for it.
Yeah.
About saying Jerome looks too old to be a 16-year-old. How many 16-year-olds look too old as Black kids to be 16-year-olds? Right? Yeah. Ma'Khia Bryant was considered a threat off rip, and she was the one that was being attacked, right? You know, Mike Brown had nothing in his hands. Hands up, don't shoot. Where did that come from? I have Breonna Taylor's name tattooed on the back of my elbow, so when I'm in a protest, they can see it, right? And like, what happens when you don't realize by calling an actor, you don't have that question about whatever 32-year-olds playing Peter Pan.
Kathy
Right.
Rigby was playing Peter Pan at 60.
You know what I mean?
Right.
You don't
And
have
I mean, not to mention the number of actors.
Oh, sorry.
Oh no, I was just gonna say the number of actors that play Romeo and Juliet, and they're like teens. They're in their teens, and they're never cast as actual teens.
Same with Hamlet. People think that Hamlet is supposed to be this grown-ass man because old-ass men play Hamlet all the time. He's a fucking late teens, early 20s at most, trying to deal with like young man shit. But we got fucking Kenneth Branagh fucking playing Hamlet, but nobody's going, I think he's a little old to play late teens.
And we can't even identify that that's bias. Or when you question like, oh, you know, the characters use so much profanity in the N-word, like Black teens commonly do. First of all, you're identifying that only the Black teens on the space are bringing this language in. And immediately you're showing a bias about the level of education you think they have because they're using so much profanity. They're using so many N-words. And now we have school teachers telling the artistic director, we can't stream the show because we cuss too much. And by we, they mean the two Black kids who are using the N-word. American vernacular English, Ebonics. That's what you're uncomfortable with.
But you'll read your historical texts that call us niggers all day long.
Or students read Heart of Darkness.
But yet the new kid is a children's book is getting banned in fucking Texas because it's a Black kid.
Exactly.
But also, I mean, the bias, it's real. And I know that we got to start wrapping up here soon. But I just want to like point out, like, we have our audience at samesies. Even at the Playhouse, audiences cannot stand seeing Black and brown people say fuck. Like, we have people who are writing in and mad at because how many fucks there were, and oh, I'm offended. You said how many? Offended. However, the musical Diana about Princess Di has a whole song about a fuckity fuck you dress that Diana wore to piss people off. Those are literal lyrics in the song. The fuckity fuck you dress. Ain't nobody was mad about that because it was a flamboyant white gay male that was the dresser singing about that fuck you dress.
Always fun.
Then it's
entertaining. Always okay.
And then it was really cute and funny.
And drove to see a David Mamet play and not question the content that is like being put on the stage. Like,
there were probably as many fucks in that one song as in the entire show of Put Your House in Order. But they couldn't understand anything that they were saying. They were mad.
Oh, they were upset about Put Your House in Order, huh?
Oh, they were mad.
Will bring me
as
hope.
Ike says, pop, pop, crackle, crackle.
Exactly. And like, I will say what will bring me hope, though, is these moments where, look, I'm nosy. I like to put my nose in everything because, once again, I said I don't trust the white audiences. So, like, if there's a conversation about the show, I need to be there. And what was really cool was the other day, I was exhausted. I was so tired. I just found out I had lost a friend of mine from high school to gun violence. Somebody had tried to break into my mama's house while my dad was away with my baby sister. Like, I was done. I was fed up. I was already tired from some shit we had been dealing with the theater. And so I was like, you know what? I can't take any meetings between these two shows. I'm just going to go to the community conversation and see what's good. And one of the very first things was an usher identifying her own adultification bias against the two characters. Because she was like, well, it was part and parcel because of the actors portraying it. And I was like, probably not, because if you look at my resume, the only age I've ever played is teenager. But she was like, but more than anything, it was your skin tone. And I was like, yes, it was. And I'm grateful that you just said that in this room with a whole bunch of other white people who probably had the same thought, but could not say that out loud.
Yes.
Or being able to say, a lot of people, especially in the reviews, seem to think that Jaden and Crystal moved to a predominantly white neighborhood and Jaden is going to a predominantly white school. It is never said in the play that that's where they go. Michael Gene Sullivan will tell you himself, the only word we use is better. And Jaden doesn't even say, I go to a school with a whole bunch of white kids. No, he says, not Black kids. I went to a school with a whole bunch of not Black kids.
Yep, exactly.
I didn't go to a predominantly white high school. I went to a school with a whole bunch of not Black kids. It was a both kind of situation. And it's like, everyone in the room was like, wait, had she not been here to say that out loud, I would have walked my ass out of here thinking it was a white. Oh, shoot. And I was like, and that's implicit bias. And everyone in the audience is like, oh my gosh. Like, I didn't know. I had no idea. But the amount of labor it takes for me to even say that out loud in a room that I don't necessarily trust or feel safe in.
Well, and also all of that, the comments about, you two looking too old for the roles or whatever. And there you go. I always say as a casting director, I don't need to know how old somebody is. I need to know how old they can play. That's the only thing that matters. And y'all played the shit out of those teenagers. But what I find interesting is, based on conversations Brittney and I have had leading up to this show, didn't nobody think that woman is in her early to mid 30s? She shouldn't have a 16-year-old. She's too young to be the mother of that child. Didn't nobody think that?
No one.
That's what I would have questioned.
Yep.
But nobody, because even if you were young, she must have had him as a teenager. She must have been a whatever. But because you can justify that, you can make that make sense in your mind. But these two Black bodies being teenage,
you know what? And Jerome, speaking to that adultification, and this is why specifically all the roles, but specifically why I'm so drawn to your role is because 13, I was damn near 6 foot tall, wearing a size 13. At 12, 13, this is it. The voice was this at 12 and 13. This is what it was. This is what it's always been. People were telling me at 12 and 13 to go on the radio. The voice has always been. But I have always been faced that adultification. And even now, all through my adulthood, I can't hide in the back of a room. I'm 6'3", I'm 285 pounds. There's no hiding. I walk in the room. This is all it is. This is me. But it's still that. Oh, you must be the security guard. You must be the this. You must be the that. Like I have to be some kind of workhorse.
Right. You've been boxed
am.
Based on your build.
I'm something like that. And why that's so important is because when I was a teenager, all I did was write poetry and draw. I didn't care about sports. It wasn't until I was like 15, 16 that it was all my other boys who was playing sports. And I was one of the most athletic in the neighborhood, but I gave a damn about football or track or none of that. And it was all of them who were pressuring me, and the teachers and the gym at school. You should be doing this. You should play sports. You should play sports. And I ended up playing sports, and that took me out of that creative lane. It took me out of that nerd lane that I have proudly jumped back into, but it took me out of that. You know what I mean? And that's just so important because we never get the chance to just be the kids that we are. I'm sorry at 13, I don't look like your son at 13. I'm sorry about that. But you know what? Yeah, I'm a couple inches taller and my voice is a little deeper, but I'm still 13. I'm still a boy. You know what I mean? Like I'm still a boy. These are still little boys. These are still little girls. You know what I'm saying? And so that's why that's so important, because people keep reinforcing that when they watch and go talk and watch and go talk and go write and watch and write, and you try to talk to them. Oh, you're just being sensitive. Why does race have to be about everything? I don't know. I didn't put race into the game. That's the country I was born into, and that's what it's built on right now. So if until another 10,000 years passes and it ain't a thing, I don't know what to do. This is where I'm at now.
And I think that, well, one, I would say it was 14-year-olds like you that had my dad going, "Who's this grown man calling my phone?" And I'm like, "Dad, he's 12, I swear." But I think that we would be little tidbit into my past. But I think we would be remiss to not bring up in this conversation. I don't know if you all have heard about it or if our audience knows that this has happened, but there's a theater, Mill Mountain Theater, that was scheduled to produce a production of In the Heights. They cast a white woman, an Italian woman, to play the role of Vanessa, citing immigrant experience. The cast, as you all's cast did, came together and said, "Oh no, this is not okay." A lot of conversations happened. The woman stepped down. They put a new person in the role, but the cast really doubled down and said, "Hey, this doesn't feel like a safe environment. We have been advised that we don't go back into rehearsal until this staff has an EDI training." As a result of that EDI training, the show was canceled. The theater pulled the show. And the cast went back and said all of the reasons that was not the right decision. And all of the decision makers went back into the room, said, "We hear you, we'll talk again," and said, "We stand by our decision to cancel the show."
It's a means.
Cancellation was a big
conversation
that we had. Every time that we met to talk about how we wanted to present an issue that we had, that's something we had to think about every step of the way. Okay, now if we pose this problem, what is this response going to be? I pretty much said from like day one, like, okay, I get it. I'm not going to get hired here anymore. That's fine. Literally, I've told them that. But it's terrible that that's the way you have to go into it. And specifically, it's so that the next cast doesn't have to deal with this shit. When the next group of Black and Asian and Hispanic people come into that room, it's important that, listen, fine, we'll do this work now. We're going to do the work for us and the people coming after us. Because if we don't get it done, if we don't speak up right now, no matter how many shows of ours you decide to cancel them all if you want to, but we're still getting this done. And you're going to have to know, you're going to have to tread lightly and more equitable for the next group.
Because it will always be a part of the history of the space. Mill Mountain Theater, that's always going to be known. It's always going to know they played the game and then they did it wrong.
Yeah.
Right? And they went back into the room and still chose not to take their opportunity that was presented to them with the creative team and the actors knowing the risks that they were taking on their own careers. They still made the choice to be like, you know what? No, we're good. Yeah. We do not have to stand on the right side of history. And that's always going to be known about Mill Mountain, right? And in this space, we'll always be able to see in the history of the Great Con on its Rolling World Premiere that this happened. So what did the theater do next? Right? What did they do to create more safe, equitable, representative spaces for people to work? Because there's a difference between performance and representation.
Yes.
Right? If we're going to actually, just like there's a difference between diversity, equity, and inclusion, we love throwing these words around without actually knowing what they mean. We love saying accountability without saying, oh, this is what it looks like for us. This is what our needs are. because we've grown up in a system and in a country that likes carceral and punitive punishment, right? And so we're like, okay, so then nobody gets to do it, or we get to cover or mask retaliation in this way. And then you guys just have to eat it and take it on the chin. And then you won't get a job here ever again, right? And you have to take that forward with whether or not you're willing to live in that courageous space and be like, you know what, I'm going to stand with my community here. And that's why I'm so grateful for, our director, Jess. She was just like, oh, we're going to put some of this stuff in my contract. So that way, if the actors have a problem, we'll have my contract to look back to. That's an ally in action. That's a change agent, right? So how are we taking on positional power to be change agents in these spaces and also honor our capacity? Because we, like Brittney said, we're going to get this done for us and for the people who are telling this story, no matter what.
Yes.
Because somehow, without saying it verbatim on the first day of rehearsal, we all looked to each other and was like, okay, I'm here and I'm here with you.
We doing this, right?
Together. Let's do this together. And I just have to thank, Jess for finding all of us to be able to be the team that did it together. And for us to be able to imagine an opportunity where we can speak up and speak out, even if we're scared. I done almost cried to the administrative, administrative leads of this theater in their faces, trying to talk about ways in which we've been mistreated racially. And done it anyways, because the hope is that it will be better for the indigenous bodies that come into this space, for the trans bodies that come into this space, for the non-binary bodies that come into this space, for other Black femme identifying queer bodies that come into this space, for people who are older. You know what I mean? Like creating space so that the global majority really is represented every step of the way. And it involves a lot of risk, and it shouldn't have to, but it does.
And I think the issue goes right back to what Ahmed brought up, is the lack of representation in the room. If there was any kind of diversity in the room, that show would not have been canceled. That show wouldn't have cast a white woman to play that part in the first place.
Right.
Right.
So
because they would have known.
Like that's not gonna work.
That's not okay.
Mina, you can sing Mina in your room and in your voice lessons. It does not have to be on a stage where you're getting paid to do it.
Well, and even Vanessa, the most sought after woman in the Heights.
Well, that's okay. Yeah, you're right. It was Vanessa. You're right. You jogged my memory. It was Vanessa.
Yeah.
So what happens when you're now telling a story about how the white woman is the most sought out? Like what happens there?
Yes.
Perpetuates the same age-old notions that we're fighting against in the very story that we're trying to tell.
And you know what, and to round it off, because again, I'm thankful you guys are here, and I wanted you to come on because that's what this space is.
Yes.
But also on the flip side of that is that, like I was saying before, because of what was happening with COVID and things, we never got a chance to mix with y'all until it was, you guys were here in the theater and tech. And
in it.
And so what happens, right? So we don't really get to talk, but what happens? The same thing that always happens, right? In the midst of us doing our thing, I get to come holler at y'all. And then now we're all touching base and we're realizing like, oh yeah, there's another flip side of this that y'all didn't even know I was in administration. And y'all didn't even know that. There was no way to know. And I didn't fully know what was going on. It took us to have to do like we always done in the old school, is find each other on the theater and get to our ways of knowing and cultural meme making and the and the well and the but you know what and the and you know what I will okay.
The same language that the reviewer was just like, why they talk like that? It's like, because it's a mean of survival. This is how we communicate. This is how we have to communicate with each other.
But let me tell you, there was a moment when Ahmed and I were having, we having a powwow, and someone was very uncomfortable with that and made it their business to come and break that powwow up. That didn't go unnoticed. I was like, okay, they don't like that.
Did not go unnoticed at all.
Oh, we have a running
That's what it's always been. whenever the black folks is talking, what's happening?
What they
What's
doing
being
over
said
there?
here? They're talking too long amongst each other.
What y'all talking about?
No, for real. There's only 3 of
That
us
is
that work at the Playhouse. There's 3 of us that work at La Jolla Playhouse. And there is, if 2 of us are sitting and talking too long, the third one will come by and be like, hey, you know they watching. Hey, y'all need to break this up. I know y'all ain't doing no good, but you need to break this up. It's starting to look suspicious. Now we're all standing here, so I gotta go.
I will say from the vantage point that I have, and like I said, you know, yes, the show went on somewhat, but there's prices to pay. You know what I mean? And it goes back to what Jacole said, like, how much are you guys willing to sacrifice? I don't unloaded a lot off my plate for not only for my mental health, but for what I feel is like, you know what? I've given a lot in these lessons. I've given a lot in these conversations over the last 1.5 years, 2 years. And I just got to a point where I was like, and maybe this time brought it to a head, to where I was just like, oh, you know what? No, let me concentrate on what my job is. Let me concentrate on what I do, because this EDI work, I know it's EDI work, but for me, it's life. Everywhere I've been, whether it's the Marine Corps, the media, radio, everywhere, this is what I've done. This is what I've done, is to fight for the people's real voices and what we really look like and what we really sound like, to be on the forefront, even to many times to my detriment, and shaved off some dollars off the paycheck and been bypassed for some stuff. But that's what it is. You know what I mean? And so again, I'm thankful for you guys to be in this space, because what I do know is that this did open some eyes, like Michaela was saying earlier, that and like Jerome was saying earlier, like, here's the real opportunity now, because a lot of theaters going to go like that. You guys thought that was the opportunity. You thought when George Floyd died that was the opportunity. You thought when you put the messages out that was the opportunity. You thought when you came up with the whatever and the whoever you contracted to come, you thought that, well, we do this and we open back up and we're good. Nah, you're going to have to go through the fire of a production, and a production that looks like this. And then we'll see what you learned. And all you got to do right now is, if you really in your human bag, like everyone says they're in right now, if you're really, I mean, this even goes for me, it goes beyond, like right now, I'm in the fight for people to understand, hey, you know, there's a whole nother section of service workers in this country that don't get recognized. And that's service workers in the theater and the performing arts, box office, concessions, front of house. They are service workers. They are service workers, and they got to put up with the in-between, what comes down from administration and what comes from the audience, and keeping the audience safe and serving them their drinks and getting them AD. Like, there's a sandwich in there to where people don't understand. There's a service industry within this theater industry. And so when shows get canceled, you're canceling part-time hours. There's no contract.
Work.
Those are hours people were counting on, it. They figured out in their 2 or 3 jobs that they hustling in, and you just killed 3 shifts for them. This is real. This is real life. This is real life. This is human behavior. So if you're in your human bag, then you realize, oh, okay, we got to go back to the drawing board. If you're in your human bag. Now, if you want to continue in what's been going on along the routes of the great white way, then that's what you will do. And I will say to you, like I've always said, then just do that. If that's what you're going to do, then do that. There are plenty of organizations who's like, we ain't changing nothing. We're going to wait for this to go by and go back to doing what we do.
Yeah.
And so for me, it's like, if you're going to get in your human bag, climb in the bag. Don't do it halfway, because times have changed. 2019 is gone, and ain't nothing going back to how it was in 2019. And people need to, everyone keeps waiting for 2019 to come back around. That is done. That is in the history books. It is over. And people like Jacole, the question she asked, this is happening nationwide. People ain't settling for what they're not putting themselves in the line for madness anymore. You know, so I just want to say, I appreciate you guys coming on here to talk. And to let your truth be known, because that's what we made this space for, because we're not going to get better. None of this is going to get better unless we now do what some people before us couldn't do. They couldn't unapologetically say what was on their mind and hope for things. We do notes. All my thing is about is all these people who was doing it defying death. They was doing it post-slavery and Jim Crow, and they are our forerunners. Like we can't get, we can't get shook. Like they was doing it when there was real consequences. You know what I mean? So I just, this episode meant a lot to me, and me and Jacole talked about it, and I was like, this is what we do. This is what we do. This is the space we're in. And like I always tell Jacole, I'm always looking for a fight. I got big shoulders. I could take the fight. I could take a fight if someone brings it to me. But I just want you guys to know I appreciate y'all being here.
And you know what? I appreciate you inviting us. And this is what I will say. With the way that this show, like this contract has been, I am very grateful that I know the two of you personally, because I wouldn't have trusted coming here to if I didn't trust you two.
Yeah.
Right. And I don't know. I cannot speak for Michaela and Jerome, but the last couple of weeks have been very, very tough. And I'm sure you two have questioned whether we should even be here. But I know you two, and I know that you guys aren't going to shy away from the truth. So I appreciate you guys, being trustworthy people and knowing that I can come here and just be like, this is what it is. And these two are so beautiful and, well-spoken and well-versed in this. I wanted them to be able to get this off their chest to other people other than us in the dressing room.
And I think it's also a means of us making way for the very thing you just named, Ahmed, was like, y'all have made space for us to expel what we've been going through and name and make plain like what we're experiencing. And we it's that whole notion of seeing beyond ourselves so that we can see everybody, we can see our community, we can see the individual and everything beyond it. Because it's given us space to be like, okay, so we're very lucky to have had a director who came into the space and was like, and even if y'all cancel a show, you're paying my actors in full. Sorry to tell you, right? But now we have the opportunity, because someone looked out for us in their position of proximal power, for us to be able to say, and don't think we didn't notice that by canceling these performances, you cut the paychecks of these folks, which is not necessarily a part of our culture for us to be speaking up for folks who are not necessarily in the same department as us. So how do we redefine that? And I think this conversation, this space we are listening, is a way in which we can do that actively, where we can bring these departments together. Because I will say, when I was told that Ahmed was going to be helping me with the elevator and the crutches and stuff, I was like, well, now I feel a little safer. Right? Now I feel, because there's a body that looks like mine. Right? There's someone that I know, like when he says, hey, like, how you doing? Like, I don't have to lie. And the same with Jacole. It's like, okay, well, I want to connect with this human being, and I want to see the work that's happening at La Jolla because I've been watching it from afar for so long. And now I'm like, oh, there's somebody who looks like me that has a positional power in a department, and that I can go into that space and know that there's a real conversation happening somewhere in the building. It don't have to be everywhere, but there's the sparks of it. And so how do we find our ends? And when we get in and we're together, how do we expand upon that so that we can actually live in our truth and we can say what we need to say out loud? And I don't think, if it weren't for Brittney, I would not have necessarily known that, because she does have those relationships. So I'm grateful for this space. I'm grateful for my castmates, our team, for both of you guys for hosting this conversation, because it's given me an opportunity to breathe. And I feel like I haven't been able to breathe in the last 6 weeks.
Jerome, you want to have the final word?
Oh, God. I'm just so thankful to be here. Thank you so much for having us. Working with this cast and crew and just being a director was an absolute blessing. And I've learned so much about myself in this process, which is surprising too, because I didn't. I knew I was going to come into this process and work on the show, and that was going to be that. But I feel like I've made a new community of friends through the show, and it's really great to be here and just kind of express ourselves openly without feeling suppress in any way. This has been a blessing. So thank you.
I thank you. I want to share, and Ahmed's thank you for showing up here so authentically, showing up with so much vulnerability, with so much humanity, and with all of that blackness. That's what we thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
If y'all can hold on for 5 more minutes, because all that we've talked about, you got to go. You got to go. Okay.
Yes, I'm so sorry. I have the MFA showcase across the way at 7:30.
Go do your thing. The theater world, you know what you're doing.
Bye. Thank you so much.
Thank you for listening. I love you all. I'm sorry I was late and now I gotta go. But thank you.
Real quick, y'all. I just want to hold y'all for a couple more minutes, because even though everything we just talked about, everybody in this building still worked to put on a bomb-ass show. So at the end of the day, everyone still came together to do what the hell they had to do. So I'm gonna start with you, Brittney, go to Michaela and Jerome. Any words you got for the folks about anything you want to let them know, or any words about coming to see the show? We enter in our last weekend, y'all. The 25th, the 26th, and 27th this weekend are your last chances to see the Great Con. Brittney, tell the folks what you want to tell them about the show.
The show is so fun. Every parent of a teenager, every teenager, especially Black and Asian, this show is for you. It is a show that is comedic, but it's also got those gut punches in there. And the gut punches aren't necessarily for you, but you will learn a lot. I appreciate this show so much. And it's a lot of fun and education wrapped up in one.
This show is an opportunity for folks that take up space in bodies like this, in bodies like Jerome, in bodies like Brittney's, in bodies like Molly's and Brian's, and even Dylan's, can be seen for once as fully nuanced human beings, and it's still rooted in joy. And though this story is not written for white audiences, it's absolutely, and I say that because Michael Gene Sullivan told me that himself, and he wrote the play. Even though it's not written for white audiences, it's absolutely necessary that they are a part of the conversation. They're in the room and they see this, and that they look to the folks who are directly impacted by these systems for what it really is for us. And this show is for the kids, if I'm going to be completely honest, no matter how we speak to each other. It is for us to be seen, for us to be heard, and it's rooted in joy instead of us being reduced to our oppression and our trauma alone.
I will say that this play has everything that you would consider a really great play to have: the humor, the heart pulling of the heartstrings, the history lessons, the opportunity for people, like Michaela said, who look like us, to be seen on stage and to speak in ways that we normally don't get a chance to see young Black kids speak on stage, which I think is beautiful. It is beautiful to celebrate Black, brown, Asian bodies on stage, and tell a story that's unique and new. And it's great to see stories that are new that you haven't heard about before. So come and check it out.
And you can see these two. They don't look grown. They look like some children. Look at them.
Yeah, you know what? Yeah, for real. Like, yeah, y'all look like folks need to stop. Y'all, I look on stage. Look, I look on stage. I see Jerome. I see young me. I see Michaela. I see 2 of my daughters in Michaela every time I see her on stage doing her thing. Brittney, even though you say you don't have kids, but I see you. I see my sister and her son. Like, I'm watching what y'all doing, and I'm sitting there and I love it, because I'm like, yeah, these are the Black folks y'all don't see, and that's why you can't understand it. You can't understand it because you don't see this, and no one is putting. I'm gonna share real quick before I let y'all go. I'm gonna share something I heard about this play, and and when I heard it in this conversation, I had to go into full Ahmed mode. There was a person I was talking to who thought that Jaden's character wasn't written right. And I literally, my response was like, oh, so you being non-Black, not having any kids, not none, not zero, none, you being non-Black, not having any kids, not having a teenage boy, not having nothing, feel like the black man who was a black boy wrote the black boy wrong.
Who
and
has
has
a
a
black
black
boy.
son. Who has a black son. Yeah.
Yeah. And I just left it there. Like, I just was like, I ain't even got to say, I'm going to let you go home and deal with that, what I just asked you. I'm not even going, I'm going to just let those questions marinate with it might be 2 years from now, and it might knock you off your chair, what I just asked you. But at some point, it's going to come to you.
It will come back.
It's so ridiculous. I just have to ask you the question back. I can't even go into the conversation with you because just that alone.
But this is so common. Opening night. I'm sorry. I know, like, we just keep going, but Jacole and I were standing around talking about the show, and a lady came up to me like, "So great. This is so great. We need to get more people in here." And we were like, "Yeah, we do." And Jacole was like, specifically Black and brown children need to be here. She said, "No, this is for everybody." Jacole said, "Well, yes,
And
but this show is for Black and brown children." And she says, "No." And Jacole handled it in such a, diplomatic way as she does. I had to walk away because I'm not as good with my words and the people. I've been in Atlanta, and I think, I don't have to deal with the people anymore. I only deal with Black folks. So I don't have patience that Jacole has as she navigates these spaces every day,
Well, it makes us think of like the white bodies who get to come and spectate this show instead of bearing witness, because there's a difference between the two. They get to decide, non-Black bodies get to decide that they know us better than we could ever know ourselves, when we are actually offering them a gift by meeting them where they are and letting them see this story in the first place, right? I grew up with the kids on the block who, like, the Black boys in my neighborhood were carrying me on my back. We were drawing race tracks in the cul-de-sac, racing each other. And they were also growing up, like, they were also in gangs. Right? These same kids that I'm playing Sega Genesis with are also growing up in an environment that gives them no other choice but to find a way to survive because of the way the world has decided they can see them. And this is what you must be. This is what you're given. And so these audience get this, it's not even a privilege, it's not even a right, but they get this opportunity to say, actually, we can decide what you are. And if you don't show us that, then you're wrong.
Right.
When it's actually the reverse, which is why I think it's so interesting that, like, the show is not for them. And it's a gift for you to even be welcomed into the room to see it.
Yep.
Bam. That, you know what? That's the perfect ending right there. That's the mic drop right there. I'm gonna discipline myself. I'm gonna do my old radio self and discipline myself, and that's it. That's the final word. Brittney, Jerome, Michaela, thank you so much. I really do. This was what I wanted this to be. This is what this is supposed to be. If someone else feels like it ain't supposed to be this, well, I'll have that battle tomorrow. And I'll fight it like I fight every other one. Thank y'all so much. Everybody, please come out this weekend, see this performance. If you like me and your kids can deal with some cussing, because they're cussing at school anyway.
Hard.
Bring them to see this. Bring them to, like, teenagers need to see them. They need to see themselves outside of your gaze. They need to see themselves as being accepted. They need to see themselves. They need to see other teenagers going through it. They need to be able to see that they can be accepted and again, not have the parents' gaze. They need those teenagers came to the student matinee the other day. I know they haven't been anywhere, so they're just used to being back out in the theater somewhere, but they was digging what they saw. You know what I mean? So again, y'all, thank you so much. Everybody, March 25th, 26th, and 27th, final weekend. Please go to sdrep.org, get your tickets. Head on over to our Facebook page and our YouTube page and our podcast page on Spotify. Please go listen to Michael Gene Sullivan's conversation that we had. Like, if you've listened to this one, now go listen to Michael Gene Sullivan and you'll get the whole skinny. So go check that out. Then get online, buy your tickets, bring some folks, buy some more tickets, bring some other folks on Sunday. All right. And don't forget to join us next Monday. We Are Listening is going on a little hiatus. We'll be back next month. Our Black Voices reading series starts next Monday. 4 plays, 1 play a week for 4 weeks by Black writers. Please head on over to sdrep.org. Get your tickets to view, and if you can, come out and join us for our watch party on April 18th for our final one. Again, Brittney, Jerome, Michaela, thank you very much. Y'all enjoy your paid vacation. And I will see y'all here at the theater on Friday. All right. Everybody listening, thank you so much. And as Jacole always says, thank you for listening. We'll see y'all later.
Peace.
Bye, y'all.